Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Today on the podcast, I have got Craig Hibbert, and he is from EV Civil Solution and Easy Reduced Carbon Blocks. Craig, thank you very much for joining me. We've met a couple of times now. Thank you, and it's been very difficult to get you on here because you're such a busy guy. Thank you for joining.
No worries, thanks for having me.
So, just to say, I love the emblazoned logos you've got on there, just so everybody can take notice of that's this company.
Well, yeah, we go.
Give us a little bit of background to how you got to where you are now with both companies.
Okay, so I formerly had a civils company which predominantly did infrastructure work on the highways, and also fibre optics infrastructure work in residential areas, and we did a lot of house building work and shed building and that sort of thing, some of the heavier side of civil engineering. So I draw from a whole host of experiences from the world of civil engineering, let's say. I decided that we was going to diversify in light of a few things that happened because of COVID. We had to lay off quite a number of men that was ground workers and civil engineers that worked with other civil engineering companies. And as a result of that, we used to work with a company called SEI Electrical, really good outfit, doing the parking eye installations up and down the country, whereby they did the electrics and we did the civils. Mm-hmm. And I think the EV world sort of works in the same way, really, where an electrical company or an EV company, which was formerly an electrical company, as most of them are, they price and win the work. They then have to find a partner to partner up with to do the civils work, because most of them don't have civils in-house. So yeah, we started to sort of prod and probe off the back of something that SEI was doing with a rival company in our town, and I thought, well, if he can do it, we can. And yeah, we got through COVID initially relatively well, and then the Indian variant hit, of all things. BT Openreach and various other outfits such as them outsource a lot of their work to India. So estimates were being sent, and there was no estimates coming back because there's nobody in the offices and various other things, and it cost me an absolute fortune. And I had to lay some further lads off. But rattling away in the background, we were sort of prodding and probing into this world of EV that we've now come to know and love. And yeah, we got inroads. For all the love of trying, we wasn't getting very far because it wasn't as far on as it is now, sort of a couple of years ago. And it was actually a friend of mine who has a company, a traffic management company, who was tapping me up at the time for connections in the construction industry because he was looking to grow. And this company popped up where, and I'll tell you in Vivo and the name, and he was like, we're doing some traffic management for them in Yorkshire, and we've got some stuff to do over here. And they're using a civils company from somewhere that was a million miles away. Mm-hmm. So they give us a contact of, I think was it Grant or somebody, but one of the guys at Vivo, and basically we got in touch with them, and that was it. But we was doing the D&O side of things then. It wasn't so much the on-site works as we put it. So we still was having the same issues that we was having, that we didn't. The worst parts of the infrastructure work was dealing with the local HAs, who generally can be as difficult or as nice as you want them to be, but they've always got an underlying ulterior motive, let's say. If they're being nice, they're always looking to fine you or trying to find a way of getting money out of you. And I think I'll not go any further into that for my thoughts on the HA. But
what's a HA? Tell me.
So the highways agency, so the local.
Oh right, get you.
Yeah, the local authorities, the council.
Yeah. I get you.
They will fine you for leaving a shoelace at the side of the road if you're a worker. It's that bad. So yeah, there was various things, and as I say, we started to look for other works. We then had contact with the lovely Sarah Sloman, who put us in touch with Elmtronics, obviously now Mer. And yeah, we started doing work with them up and down the country, and started to pick up some of this on-site works, installing the actual chargers. So many thanks to them and Dan Martin and the guys for giving us our opportunity to do that in the first instance. And from that, we sort of started looking at the bigger picture and how we can bring our knowledge from the civils that we'd been doing before and the systems that were implemented, and where things weren't as in place in this side of it being such a new industry still anyway, on a commercial scale anyway, let's say. And some of them still aren't in place. There's various things. I'm not going to mention some of them because I don't want people nicking my ideas, but there's certain processes and the ways of working from a civil engineering point of view that as an electrical company you just wouldn't even look. You don't look at the ground like we look at the ground, let's say, because you've got X-ray vision, or the right channels to go down to find what's in the ground. You just wouldn't know to do it. We actually went up with the Elmtronics guys, Simon Brown and the guys up there, and did some civil survey training with them. It's a service that we offer as EV Civils. It's we can do everything from service to completion, and yeah, I like to think it helped them. It was off the back of a job that we actually went to, where we mobilised everything, grab wagon, tarmac wagon, the full shebang, to go down there for a week and do a job. And it was in Solihull, and when we got there was actually buried fuel tankers in the ground. So the guys, even my guys, started work. They didn't realise initially. It was only when one of them looked to the side and seen a breather pipe and thought, why is there that funny looking drain pipe sticking out the ground? So he got onto us, and then it actually somebody on site went, oh yeah, did you not know there's buried fuel tanks here? And lo and behold, there was an old petrol pump that again nobody had noticed. So yeah, I know Liz, obviously me and you talk about lean management and other things in our spare time for fun, and it was talking about lean management and going to site and mobilising wagons, men and everything, and obviously even down to the work that goes on in the back office in the planning processes, all went out the window. And it's like, okay, we've got to revisit everything and we're going to start all over again. And obviously pulling men away, it's before we get to full electric installs, which is obviously what we're trying to achieve. There's ways of minimising your carbon footprint, certainly from a management point of view. The prior planning prevents. I think we know the rest of it. It's but you get what I'm saying.
I do, yeah. And you're right. And actually, people they don't seem to. They're so busy, aren't they, getting into a project? They don't think about, right, okay, it's not just about ticking all the boxes, it's about thinking about it in a different way, isn't it?
It's about getting the charges in the ground is what it is. It's everyone's focused on the end result, and it's a tunnel vision thing almost, and it's, some of it comes with, as we know, there's lack of resource across many industries, and certainly when you're trying to fill construction-based roles within a new industry such as EV, and you've got there's a massive drive in the utilities world, whether it's the cadent gas rip and replace schemes, or whether trying to replace all the old mains throughout the country, or you've got certainly fibre optics infrastructure work. They're on a massive drive, BT Open Recharge, to update everything that's in the ground and roll out the full fibre to your door. So they're taking a lot of resource in order to push that on, and unfortunately that's been going way before this was in place. So the skill set there that further down the line will be available, but at the moment it's just not there, even still now. People aren't necessarily looking to do civils work in the EV space because they're too busy doing other things. The building sites, I used to have a labour agency providing ground workers, and only just recently have I had calls from some of them looking for work. People I've not spoken to for ages, because the housing boom, that happened throughout COVID, it gave everyone loads of work. Everyone thought it was going to go the other way, but I certainly did. It's, I had to lay 40 lads off overnight because of it, and I never got the lads back. But it's such is life. They were paying good money on the housing sites, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Not
going
easy,
back
is
to
it?
where we were, I think. So yeah, we were working with electronics, and we started to pick up a few other clients along the way. Yeah, we in our first 12 months as an actual EV company, once I decided that was what we was going to do, we're going to rebrand. I sold CSH Civils, and we sort of went gung ho straight into the EV world. Decided that's what it's all about. That's where we want to be. We like the people in the industry. We liked everything, albeit there was a few teething problems. We knew it was a massive learning curve for everybody, and we stuck at it. And we probably overachieved in our first 12 months. To be quite honest, we did
Mm,
much better than I ever thought we would do. And so we continue to do so moving forward. It's to say we're adding new clients all the time. I know there's been things that have happened of late with the GDPR, cybersecurity issues, with people not being able to produce charges as they were until they sorted themselves out, let's say, and brought things in house and did what they're doing. But yeah, there's always going to be these issues in a new industry as things
mm,
evolve. Just like the thing, as I said, with things not processes not being involved in place to do with civils, certainly to do with from the installation process. There's obviously Kate Tiller does a great job. She's going around, doing her surveys on the installed chargers, and making sure that they're fit for purpose. But as it stands, there's not really anyone doing it for the stuff that's already in the ground. It's not,
mm.
in any other utility that you work in, there are um, how do we put it? So you have the Smart Awards scheme card that you get for if you're working on the fibre optics or telecommunications
Okay.
network. You work for it on the gas network. There's the same for site work. I mean, there's a CSCS card, but that's more of a health and safety qualification. But even so, still, there are electrical ones, but there's nothing for the actual installation process. So for making sure that cables are installed at the right depth,
Yeah.
the right compaction. There's nothing there. If you was doing it on the highway, you'd have a NASRA card, Streetworks card, which covers you for that. And the minute you go onto private land, you can do what the hell you want within reason.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's yeah. There's certainly things. There's certainly work left to do from a civil perspective. Certainly with new people moving into the industry who are coming from not necessarily the right background because there's a shortage of labour and resource, let's say. Um, but yeah, so yeah, as I say, that's us really, and that's how we've come to be where we are from where we were, and it's great. Things are good. Yeah, I can't complain. As I say, every day's a school day.
That's good. So, what would you say? Right, you said you did better than you thought in the first year then. So, what is it about what you do that's better? And I know we're not going to mention anybody, but what do you do that's better without giving it away than some of the other companies? Is it the fact that you just know your stuff?
No, I don't even think it's that. I think it was the people. I have to say, it was a lot of it was right time, right place. I'm not actually going to say it was anything more than that.
Mm,
Every time we made a phone call to an electrical company or an EV company, so as it be, they were like, "You're just the people we need. We're just the people we need." And the fact we're called EV Civils almost sells itself. We're not bloody Roy Copper Groundworks from down the road or whoever who's ringing up, and that is another issue in the industry that unfortunately there's always a price element involved with everything that's done. So some guy who's looking for work, or he might see an advert, he might see something, and he rings up. And we've seen it where they've had landscape gardeners doing civils work who don't have the first idea about putting cable ducting in the ground, or they don't have
God.
the first idea about how to install a charger base. They've got their own interpretation, and there seems to be, this is the bad side of the industry from the civils point of view. There's smaller outfits who've got their own interpretation of how things should be done, but it's not the actual safe way or the best quality way of how things should be done.
So, would you say that because you've had more of that, you're obviously a lot further on than most people anyway, aren't you? So I'm assuming your background knowledge is much deeper, and therefore you know what's acceptable, even if there's no kind of formal structure in place
Yeah.
for that proper safety and security side. You know really what should be in place, don't you? So
Yeah, I mean, even even a ground worker, just a standard communal garden ground worker, wouldn't necessarily know utility depths for water, gas, or electric installations. And it's that you should treat every site the same, whether it be in somebody's back garden or whether it's on a motorway or on a highway or on a residential estate. They should all be treated with the same respect. Electric cables should be buried at depth, and they should have the correct amount of backfill and warning tape or tile tape, or and the reinstatement should be of a certain standard, regardless of where it is. It makes no odds. I say it all the time. Would you be happy with it if it was in your back garden? You had to look at it. Well, but there's always an element of, and this is no disrespect to any lads who worked for me at the time, you can't babysit all the lads who work for you all the time either. So. Sometimes things happen, and the weather plays a massive effect on civils. This is another thing that people don't see. The winter's hard months, especially when you're digging trenches and you've got water filling up the trenches filling with water, and you're struggling to get your reinstatement done. But anyway, enough of the violins.
Oh, honestly, you're making me blooming shiver just thinking about it. I don't really fancy doing that. Although I would like to see a civil project one of the times you're down my neck of the woods. It'd be really interesting.
Yeah, no,
to see it,
We'll get a high vis on you and get you out there.
I've got one.
Oh, there you go then.
Maybe, I don't know whether they're emblazoned or anything like that, But so tell me about the carbon block side of things. So this is something that you've started kind of pushing recently, isn't it? Because the low carbon blocks.
Yeah.
And the kind of the link to the importance of carbon reduction. Give me a little bit of background to that, will you? How did that come into play?
So I think we'll pick up from where I sort of left off, really, to do with skill set of men, almost like a horses for courses thing. It's you wouldn't necessarily know what was expected, or even down to reading a drawing. If somebody, here's an example. We went to look at a job for a major. I can't name names. A major EV charger manufacturer and installer in the country, and somebody decided they was going to site their chargers on flags. So they'd basically done a bit of a scratching out. They'd done a bit of a hole enough to get a cable through. It was a really poor installation. Anyway, this is where we had some of our guys doing the DNO work on the outside, on the external of the car park, and they said to the guys, "Oh, what do you guys do for a living?" They said, "Well, landscape gardeners." Well, landscape gardeners work with flags, and to put it on a flag, it just wasn't good. There was nothing in the ground. There was nothing to stop it being pushed over. It had the flag, but really, if you'd have leant on it, it'd have gone over. So, off the back of that, there was other things, like we've been to look at other people's jobs when we've been asked to, and obviously being in the trade, you're nosy and you look what other installs have been done, and the biggest inconsistency is charger bases, whether it be the finish, the way it's put in, the mix of the concrete, there's just the size of it. Is it big enough? Has it got enough concrete in the ground to stop it being pushed over? It's you'd be amazed at how many different types of finish we've seen, and even down to one job where I think there were 6 chargers on one job, and 3 guys on site must have all decided that they knew best and they were all going to have a go at it out of however many guys, and every charger base was slightly or completely different than the next one. So there was no uniform installation. Aesthetically, it was absolutely terrible, and they all had to come out. So that's then affecting their carbon footprint because the job's having to be done twice. Obviously, they're working with wet pour concrete on site again, which doesn't carry, it carries a lot of embodied carbon. So this is where the preform thing side, the preform came from, really. It was to get some consistency in installs, and not so that pretty much anyone can do an installation. A lot of it for us is not just about that. It's obviously the uniform finish when they're cured in a controlled environment, but it's the density of the concrete. You can do it. The weather affects concrete in a massive way, whether it be too cold, too hot, or raining to get a finish on it. So if you've got a concrete block that's cured and finished in a certain way in a controlled environment that has got a uniform finish, you can turn up and you can install it in pretty much any weather. You've not got to build your shutter in, pour your concrete, hope that the weather's okay to get a good finish on it. put your vibro compactor in, another thing that most people don't do, to knock the air bubbles out so they get the density of the concrete so it sets properly. It can be very crumbly concrete. You can pour a base and you can't get an actual anchor fixing it because the mix of the concrete isn't right. So yeah, there's loads of little things that to the average person will just think, oh yeah, that's something and nothing, it doesn't really matter. But when you're trying to win work and win new contracts and you want to get a bit of consistency, and if you can use a product that's done in a controlled environment in a factory, done by professionals, that's got the same finish every time, the job looks neater at the end result, and obviously a lot easier to install. So we was looking at ways of doing it ourselves. We was approached by a leading concrete manufacturer, who are the only precast concrete manufacturer in the country working with reduced carbon concrete, and basically it ticked all the boxes for us. We was like, yeah, this is just great. So yeah, we've obviously entered into a partnership with them, Anderson Concrete, and yeah, onwards and upwards really, working in partnership. I think partnerships and collaborations are the way forward. I know the EV Cafe a lot always talk about collaboration a lot, and if we can all help each other to get on and get something out there, they've spent literally, hundreds of thousands on this technology to reduce the embodied carbon in concrete. They've obviously got the facilities to press and roll out en masse any numbers that we want, obviously. So we've got the supply chain of blocks there. And it was just a no-brainer really to do what we're doing and work with them and work at ways of reducing the weight and taking some of the the weight element out of it. And there's various other things. We now make the block so that it bespokely fits any pedestal base. Obviously we've got an EV tower pedestal behind us, a Zappy charger on it. The base plate, we can make it so that the top of the concrete can have a recess in it, so the base plate actually sits snugly inside the concrete, so there's no upstand or lip. The bit where we've gone a step further as civil engineers, we look at things such as manual handling on site, because you've got to lift the concrete block safely and securely, not with straps or whatever that can rock all over the place. And it's got to be, you're lifting it lower than your feet, so it's a health and safety manual handling nightmare, for people with bad backs, etc. So what we now do is we set for a bespoke block. So if it was made to fit the EV tower, you'd obviously have your base plate with the 4-point connection, the holes in the base plate, that we sat in a recess, that'll have female threaded sockets which you will screw down into, so it eliminates any work on site, the casting in the factory. So there's no dust or noise pollution on site. There's time saved further, even more on site, with the precast solution of the Easy Block, and they are actually double as lifting eyes. So you wire lifting eyes into them, you use 4-legged chains, and if you've got an excavator on site, as most of these jobs have, you can lift it safely and securely and place it in place. You then unwind them, the same threaded holes are used to secure your base plate of your pedestal.
That sounds fantastic. So how much is it, does it speed the job up by actually having the free preformed concrete then?
Massively. So we work on a thing called a same day installation. So same day installation for us is where you can turn up on day one, or might take 2 days to do your excavation work. You then prepare your ground and make sure everything is set and ready in place for the laying of the blocks. So that means your ducts in, your ducts backfilled, you've got your tape in place, you've got your stand, everything is as should be up to the point of the blocks. So you leave your duct stuck out the ground, you then lower your block over your duct, and it's done. That's it, done in the same day. So you've not got the revisit of site 1 to 2 days later to see that your concrete's cured, and you've got to restrip your shuttering. So on your final day, you're putting your blocks in place and your reinstatement's done, and that's it done. There's no going back to site thereafter. So as I say, we try and, especially on smaller installations, we always try and work on, as I say, same day installation. It's not always possible, obviously, depending on the size of a job, but same day installation really refers to sort of 1 to 2 bases with a minimal duct run, or it refers to same day installation in that when the block's in the ground, it's in the ground and there's no revisits. You can attach your pedestal straight away. You don't need to worry about waiting for your concrete to cure, so you've got to come back another day, strip the shuttering, and then let the electricians know when it's gone off enough to come and drill and fix into it.
So that in itself, the fact that it's speeding up the installation anyway is reducing your own carbon footprint as well, isn't it? Because you're not having to return to site.
Yeah. So I mean, I know that you know, and so as a company, EV Civils, we've stripped the company back in order to decarbonise ourselves, and we are on a manned mission to become the first net zero civils company in the country, if not Europe or the world, because we're not fully aware of anyone else who's trying to do what we're doing. People probably think we're absolutely mad and that it'll never happen, or other people just think, what's the point? But yeah, for us, that's our goal, and that's where we want to be at, and educating and leading the way, in line of net zero, at least reduce carbon installations. It's tarmac's always going to be an issue in the civils industry for reinstatement, but blocks, flags, and everything else that comes with it, yeah, we can certainly work towards it. There's a lot of elements though, even down to the car you drive to work, or the how much paper you use in an office, the light bulbs that you've got in your offices. There's a hell of a lot of things. It's not just, in line with ESG as something that gets spoke about more and more these days, and I think we're going to see it become more prominent over the next 12 months for your accreditations. The civils element is the hardest part to get to clean by a country mile.
Yeah.
And if you really want to start getting into it and stripping it back, especially if you've got quarried stone and various other things, yeah, it's always, for me, it's always going to be almost net zero. I think it's a massive task, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's a massive task.
But the fact, if you're saying that you don't think that other companies would take it seriously, they should do.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah, 100%. A lot of it is about getting the charges in the ground. Unfortunately, cost plays a massive role in it still. It's how many charges can we get in the ground for the best price? Some of the best tenders that we have these days actually say at the top that the cheapest price will not necessarily be awarded the job. And more EV companies are going to come up against these challenges and issues that if they're not using a civils company that's working, at least trying to work in the right way, and a reduced carbon concrete block for your foundation, for your pedestal, goes a long way towards it, because that is the main concrete element of a standard installation.
Yeah.
And obviously if you're building an electric forecourt, but again, there's 80% reduced carbon concrete that can be bought en masse from the bigger concrete companies, your Tarmacs and your Hansons and all the rest of it. So yeah, the big names in the concrete industry are really on with it. They're doing majorly really important things, and they're spending a hell of a lot of money in the process. On the precast side of things, the say Anderton are doing mega stuff. And for me, what I'd like to see is that you can basically do a full charger base, or should I say full charger installation, including if you've got to rip out the ground, which is soft ground, and replace it. So basically, if you're forming a charger bay, you should be able to do it from start to finish pretty much with everything reduced carbon at least. So your curbs that go around the edge of the car parks, or whether it be the flagstones that you're putting down, or the concrete base, everything there should be done in at least in the most ethical way as possible. And with the best reduced carbon concrete products that you have to hand. I don't know of anyone who's producing reduced carbon concrete curbs. I mean, just take a walk down the road and see how many curbs there are. But if we started ripping all them out and crushing them, we're going to start releasing more carbons. I don't know what's best. Do you just leave them in? But at least going forward, anything new that's placed in the ground, whether it be drop curbs, bullnose curbs, or tactiles, or anything along them lines in a footway or in a car park, should be made from reduced carbon concrete. I don't see why it's not. Come on, guys, come on, concrete companies. It's
They should do, definitely.
let's do this. It doesn't.
So the preformed blocks that you've got,
Yeah.
how much of a reduction in carbon is there in those blocks? Is it kind of 30%, 20%? What's it?
The standard block that's made with 20% reduced carbon concrete.
Okay.
The block that you push and advertise is 38% reduced carbon concrete.
Blimey.
You know that they've managed to do 80% reduced carbon concrete. It's how they roll that out en masse and put that into precast. How do I put it? well, it's how they precast it. I think
Yeah. I suppose, yes.
it's got to be
Because
doing
it's their process, isn't it? It's their process, their casting process that will add to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to be done in a certain way so that it sets and holds, and there's various elements that come into play when it comes to that. And special ingredients and certain other things that even we don't know. So yeah, there's only certain depots in the country that can actually produce the 38% reduced carbon concrete block. Slowly but surely the technology will be implemented, and new kit and various other things will come into play, so they will be able to do the 80%. But for now, it's just a really nice thought, but they'll definitely get there. They're certainly working towards it.
It's brilliant. I mean, this is real innovation in civils, isn't it?
Yes,
It's
absolutely,
it's moving innovation forward, and like you say, not many people are actually thinking about it at the moment. Hopefully, they will do. And really, if you're seen to be leading the way with it, then it's your good name.
I mean, obviously, it's not us on our own. We're working with partners who have been around a lot longer than us and who are bigger names in the game than we are. But obviously, by collaborating and working with them, and obviously, us promoting them through our channels in the EV industry, obviously such as yourself and the EV Cafe and various other things. It's it's good. It's good for all, really, and it's all about education. It's not just about us doing it, and we're not trying to keep secrets from anyone. We want to tell everybody what it is that we're doing. When we want to say, look, guys, it's not just about, everyone has to do their bit.
Absolutely, it's so important. So, I mean, we've kind of, what would you say then is the trickiest? I mean, we kind of talked about it anyway, haven't we? But what's the trickiest bit about a civils project? Is it because it's got multiple layers to it?
No, I think the trickiest part about civils is knowing what's in the ground before you start digging.
Yeah.
So any prior planning,
like a fuel tank.
yeah, exactly. So if people are asking, you start with people on site. Is there a facilities management company? Who manages the site? They're the first key things, and then obviously you've got line search drawings. And another job we went to at, I think it was Chris went to a job, I think it was just by Haydock near Haydock Racecourse for Mercury Hotel. And when we got to site, we had a drawing that had been proposed, and then we realised that there were markers for a high pressure gas main that basically runs through the site, and it was like, you're not allowed, you can't go anywhere near it. But how they'd missed it? Well, they'd never even looked at a service drawing. They didn't have any idea about any line search drawing. They never knew anything, and the lads who'd been sent to site didn't even know what to look for. So these are real major factors, that can completely change the scope and the end result of a job. It's that thing again of, had we been sent there to start digging and not done a pre-site ourselves, which is something we've learned to do very quickly. It needs to be done. We'll take it. They'll go, no, you're okay. You don't need to do that. And at first you think, it looks quite good, this survey. You soon realise it's actually really not. But yeah, going back to what you're saying, the biggest issues are unforeseen stuff that's in the ground that can't be predicted. There's a cost element and there's a carbon footprint element. Just going the extra mile to do as many checks as you can on site. And if you can't get drawings, doing a geo survey or similar, or there's various things that you can do to see what's in the ground. It depends on the size of the job. If it's a big job, then obviously you do need to go the extra mile, even more so. If it's a smaller job and it's just in a footway, there's always generally a way of getting around things, but a lot of it comes with other services as well as another issue. Trying to get your ducks in at depth when you're going down a service strip, whether it be across the front of an office block or whether it's in a footway. Generally, like the HA will only let you put your duct run where there's already ducts. Well, there's already electric, comms, gas, water. Everything's already in the ground, and then you've got to find it at depth. So there's various things, and then there's always the weather. That's always an issue in civils. We all love to get wet and cold, don't we?
No.
Absolutely not.
And the biggest thing you're saying here, though, all the way through, is don't make shortcuts.
Yes, 100%.
So a message to anybody out there who's involved in any kind of installs like this: just do do the right thing. Don't kind of cut corners.
No, it's all about, as I said before, prior planning. Really, just using all the tools that you have to hand to make sure that the job starts off in the best possible format.
Yeah.
There's too many times that honestly, there's loads of things I could say, to be honest with you, in light of issues and things that have gone wrong. And unfortunately, and this is not me getting the violins out, the electrical companies seem to turn around, or the EV companies will turn around and say, well, surely you already knew that was in the ground. Well, how could you know it was in the ground if you didn't have X-ray vision? So it's, how you just wouldn't know. You wouldn't know unless you start digging. There's no way. There's indicators for certain things, There's obviously valves and stop taps and various other inspection chambers and manhole covers, and you can do a visual survey, but that only will take you so far.
And I suppose really, it's about them being responsible and not passing responsibility. Just they can't say that the civils company should have known when they were the ones who were instigating the project in the first place, can they?
Again, it comes back to that thing of working together as a team. In the initial stage, if you go into site to go and do a survey, and you have got a civils company you work with, take them with you. Let them have a look. They're the ones who are experienced in doing civils. Let them cast their eye over the job. I'm pretty sure they're not going to charge you for it if they're going to get a job out of it at the end of it.
Exactly.
If they do, then they're bloody tight buggers. But I suppose it depends where the job is. But even having a pre-site meeting goes a long way. The job's won. It's over the line. It's ready to start. You've got to do a pre-site meeting.
Cool. Well, look. So I'm going to end up by asking you: can you let everybody know what your website is?
Website for www.easyblock.co.uk.
Okay. And then EV Civils?
www.evcivilsolutions.co.uk. Currently under construction.
I spotted that.
In line with our drive towards reduced carbon concrete, we've decided that we're going to restructure the website, the wording, and start to make it work with us and our vision. So
where's the best place for people to contact you, through the website or on, because you've got quite a big presence on LinkedIn, you kind of sponsor the EV Cafe, don't you? So is LinkedIn the best place?
Yes, yeah, I'd say so, yeah. Either myself or Chris Carpenter, that's LinkedIn. The world seems to revolve around LinkedIn a lot these days.
It does, exactly.
All our contact details and everything's on there.
It's a good community on LinkedIn, actually, especially in this sector. It's very good. It's interesting.
It's become a bit of a hub, really, hasn't it? And obviously, as we've mentioned a few times, EV Cafe are sort of head of the hub, really.
They are the hub head, the hub heads of the hub.
good people, good things. So it's all good.
Definitely. So you said about Sarah earlier, didn't you? Yes. Who introduced you to Elmtronics. So I'm assuming that's how you kind of ended up sponsoring the EV Cafe, was it?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, if I remember rightly, I think it was Paul Kirby we first had contact with. I think Sarah said, I'll speak to Paul. Or I remember having a few sort of lengthy phone calls with Paul, and he was really interested in what it was that we was doing. Obviously, civils is a massive part of, sometimes it can be 70% of the installation process if it's not a wall-mounted charger. So, yeah, it's a part that hadn't really been looked at. It was obviously, it complements what they do and works in line with everything else with their other sponsors. So, yeah.
Fabulous. Well, listen,
it's become plenty of us.
It's been brilliant talking to you, honestly. I've really, really enjoyed it, my love.
And sleep anyway.
Hey, you didn't... No, I kept you awake.
No, not me, you.
Oh no, I didn't fall asleep either. I thought you were saying you were going to fall asleep.
Oh God, I might look tired, but...
Well, for those who are listening, he's just thinks he's tired. He's all right, really.
I am.
And listen, and also for those who are listening, he's actually got a Zappy charger on a, and I've totally lost the name of it.
EV tower pedestal.
Thank you. On an EV tower, I'm having an old lady moment then, right behind his shoulder. So that's perfect placement, isn't it?
Yes.
But listen, Craig, thank you ever so much for your time. like I say, we'll be bumping into one another very soon, I'm very sure. And
Yes.
just to say to everybody else, I shall see you later. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon and you'll receive all of our weekly videos. Thanks for watching. See you soon.